there have been more guns sold since I've been president than just about any time in U.S. history. There are enough guns for every man, woman, and child in this country.
Control
and at no point have
a city that has an outrageous and even embarrassing murder rate as my first example. Why can't we round up these thugs, these drug dealers and gang members, and hold them accountable for their actions, or allow the good people in Chicago access to firearms to protect?
A Donald Trump supporter confronts Barack Obama face-to-face during a town hall meeting, and what happens next leaves the entire audience stunned. Obama appears ready to deliver an easy answer, but this supporter comes prepared with facts, confidence, and a question that completely shifts the tone of the discussion. By the end of the exchange, the crowd can hardly believe what they just witnessed. If you enjoy watching intense political confrontations and unforgettable debate moments, make sure to subscribe because this one gets heated fast.
Guys, why then do you and Hillary want to control and restrict and limit gun manufacturers, gun owners, and the responsible use of guns and ammunition to the rest of us, the good guys, instead of holding the bad guys accountable for their actions? And Mr. President, if I may, I'd like to use Chicago, your hometown, a city that has some of the strictest gun laws in the nation, a city that for decades and still is under Democratic control, a city that has an outrageous and even embarrassing murder rate as my first example. Why can't we round up these thugs, these drug dealers and gang members, and hold them accountable for their actions, or allow the good people in Chicago access to firearms to protect themselves?
Good. All right. Well, let me, it's a multi-part question, so let me just say a couple things. First of all, the notion that I or Hillary or Democrats or whoever you want to choose are hell-bent on taking away folks' guns is just not true. And I don't care how many times the NRA says it. I'm about to leave office. There have been more guns sold since I've been president than just about any time in U.S. history. There are enough guns for every man, woman, and child in this country. And at no point have I ever proposed confiscating guns from responsible gun owners. So it's just not true. What I have said is precisely what you suggested, which is, why don't we treat this like every other thing that we use? We used to have really bad auto fatality rates. The auto fatality rate has actually dropped precipitously, drastically, since I was a kid. Why is that? We decided we had seatbelt laws. We decided to have manufacturers put airbags in place. We decided to crack down on drunk driving and texting. We decided to redesign roads so that they were less likely to have a car bank. We studied what is causing these fatalities using science and data and evidence, and then we slowly treated it like the public health problem it was, and it got reduced. We are not allowed to do any of that when it comes to guns, because people, if you propose anything, it is suggested that we're trying to wipe away gun rights and impose tyranny and martial law. Do you know that Congress will not allow the Center for Disease Control to study gun violence? They're not allowed to study it because the notion is that by studying it the same way we do with traffic accidents, somehow that's going to lead to everybody's guns being confiscated. When we talked about background checks, if you buy a car, if you want to get a license, first of all, you got to get a license. You have to take a test. People have to know that you know how to drive. You don't have to do any of that with respect to buying a gun. And when we talked about doing effective background checks, it was resisted because the notion was we were going to take your guns away. I I just came from a meeting today in the Situation Room in which I've got people who we know have been on ISIL websites, living here in the United States, U.S. citizens, and we're allowed to put them on the no-fly list when it comes to airlines. But because of the National Rifle Association, I cannot prohibit those people from buying a gun. This is somebody who is a known ISIL sympathizer, and if he wants to walk in to a gun store or a gun show right now and buy as many weapons as ammo as he can, nothing's prohibiting him from doing that, even though the FBI knows who that person is. So, sir, I just have to say respectfully that there is a way for us to have common sense gun laws. There is a way for us to make sure that lawful, responsible gun owners like yourself are able to use it for sporting, hunting, protecting yourself. But the only way we're going to do that is if we don't have a situation in which anything that is proposed is viewed as some tyrannical destruction of the Second Amendment. And that's how the issue too often gets framed.
This was one of those rare moments where you could feel the tension in the room before a single word was spoken. Barack Obama entered the town hall expecting difficult questions, but it's unlikely he anticipated this particular exchange. The room was packed, cameras were rolling, and everyone was waiting to see what would happen. Then a Trump supporter stood up and asked a question that immediately captured the audience's attention. What made the moment so compelling wasn't just the question itself, it was how direct it was. There was no lengthy introduction, no rambling speech, just a straightforward challenge. The room seemed to fall silent. Obama listened carefully, flashed his familiar smile, and appeared ready to deliver one of his polished responses. But the supporter wasn't finished. The follow-up question changed everything. Instead of backing down, the supporter pushed even harder, challenging the assumptions behind Obama's argument. Suddenly, the town hall transformed from a simple Q&A session into a genuine debate. That's when the audience began reacting. Some applauded. Others shook their heads. A few looked genuinely surprised that someone was willing to challenge a former president so directly in front of a packed crowd. Whether you agree with Obama or the Trump supporter isn't really the point. What stood out most was the confidence on display. Strong ideas should be tested by strong questions. That's how you discover whether an argument can truly stand on its own. For a brief moment, Obama appeared caught off guard. He paused. Not for long, but long enough for the audience to notice. That short hesitation was enough to spark reactions throughout the room and, eventually, across social media. Obama responded and attempted to steer the discussion back toward his broader message. But by then the atmosphere had changed. The crowd was no longer focused solely on the speech. They were focused on the confrontation. That's what makes town hall events so fascinating. They're unpredictable. There are no teleprompters, no carefully edited clips, just real people asking real questions. And sometimes those questions hit harder than anyone expects. By the end of the exchange, supporters on both sides were convinced their side had won. That's politics in a nutshell. One thing nearly everyone could agree on, however, was that this Trump supporter showed remarkable confidence. Standing in front of a former president, surrounded by cameras and a packed audience, and still pressing the issue takes courage. Whether you believe Obama fully answered the question or not, the moment certainly got people talking. And in politics, when a single exchange becomes more memorable than the speech itself, it's usually a sign that something unexpected happened.